Hello everybody, Resented here, back in my the Labyrinth program that I'm making, and I was talking about in my last video about how I would halt video production until either I finished combat or I hit some sort of milestone, and this is kind of related to the milestone bit because I haven't finished combat at all, but I have gotten some good ground in spell creation. And I thought I'd show you guys just a little bit on how spell creation is going to work in my game. Excuse me. I did sneeze like a little bit ago and it's really bunged up my throat. So I apologize if I like start coughing and clearing my throat because it is very annoying. Anyways, yes, spell creation. The framework that I built for my game was... So, I'm not gonna toot my own horn, but it was so well done that I'm able to make spells in, like, a single spell in, like, 5 minutes. And so I kind of wanted to show you guys the sort of process that I go through in order to make a spell, just so, you know, to show off how it works. And what I have here, I'm pretty sure my recorder is picking up my main monitor here. It does show the little recording icon on both my monitors, so I don't know how this is gonna work when I put the focus away from the main window. But anyways, I'm gonna do it anyway because I gotta pull this up to the main window. Anyways, I'm gonna pull this over here just to show you guys the one that I'm working on. Right now, actually let me go back for a second. I did create spells over here for 2 mages, the arcane mage and the white mage. As you can see, I did create all the spells for those guys. And then I also did create the spells for the Berserker and the Templar. And so now I'm working on the Rogues, because I'm basically going down the list. Like I did the Berserker, then the Templar, then Arcane, and White Mage. And right now I'm at the Assassin. And I was working on Mercy earlier, but Mercy is a kind of specialized ability. So I thought I would show that a little bit later. Right now I'm going to do a very simple spell. I'm going to do Sharp Blade, just because it's really easy. It's basically, it deals 100% piercing damage. And what the 100% damage thing does, because you might, if you're reading the other spells, like deals 75% attack damage, deals 125% attack damage, deals 100% attack damage. What does that mean? Basically, whenever it takes a portion of a damage, no matter what damage, it could be like deals 50% spell damage or deals 25% divine damage. The percentage is basically the percent of a random damage value from your weapon. So if your weapon deals 50 to 100 damage, and if it says it deals 100% damage, like right here, what it's going to do is it's going to take a random number from your weapon damage, and it's going to multiply it by a factor of the percentage. So if it's a 100%, it's not going to change the number at all, since 100% of a number is that number. But for Mercy, for instance, it says it deals 75% attack damage, so what it does is it takes a random damage number and multiplies it by 0.75, which is effectively reducing it by 25%. And then the next bit, the attack damage, that's just like what kind of damage does that ability do. So up here with the mages, like for this one, excuse me, there's clearing my throat again. Anyways, this says deals 115% spell damage, so it effectively deals 15% bonus weapon damage, but it doesn't deal attack damage like a normal attack does. It converts that damage into spell damage. So it allows me to kind of fiddle with specific damage types, so I can have like a really good ability to do divine damage, which pierces any resistance, or in this case I can have piercing damage, where piercing damage is basically attack damage, only it pierces defenses. So it's kind of like a less good version of divine damage, because divine damage will do damage no matter what, and it always deals that much damage. If it says it deals 10 divine damage, there's nothing that can reduce it. I think I have one like passive ability on one class that actually reduces divine damage, but other than that, there's really nothing that reduces divine damage. There is piercing. You can alter also, what I was trying to say with piercing damage is, since it acts like attack damage, anything offensive that attack damage gives, it also applies to piercing damage. So if you have lifesteal, where like 20% of your damage is returned to health, it doesn't just apply on attack damage. If you deal piercing damage, that also gives you the lifesteal. So piercing damage is closer to attack damage in that sense than it is to divine damage in the piercing sense. So anyways, that's just the little brief rundown of what that means. And so basically I'm going to be creating the Sharp Blade active, where it deals 100% piercing damage, and it costs 25 mana, has a cooldown of 2 turns, and it has 2 upgrades. The first one gives plus 50% piercing damage dealt, which will increase it to 150% piercing damage, and then the second upgrade reduces the mana cost by 10. So I'm going to go pull this back over to my other monitor, and from here I already created the class and I haven't altered it at all, and so now I'm just going to show you kind of what I do. I do format it just a little bit just to make it a little special, put my name so that people know who the author is. I empty the spaces there, and then I start. So this extends active spell. I do have 3 parent classes. Well, the parent class is the spell class, and then the child classes that are the parent classes of the individual spells are active spells, passive spells, and infinite spells. And then from here, the individual spells then extend these ones right here, and all these 3 extend this one right here, which is a little bit hard to follow, but it's basically just like a big tree, and all these spells lead up to the root, which is right here. Anyways, okay, so we do have the Sharp Blade class, and then what I have to do is I have to call the super, which calls all the code inside of its parent initialize function, which then it calls all this stuff right here. So I do the super, and an active spell needs a spell type, and then the spell type is basically the type of spell that this is mainly, so that it can be used properly whenever I make AI. And so this one is going to be it deals 70. Yeah, it's this is basically a no. I'm sorry, Sharp Blade. I was looking at Mercy. Yeah, Sharp Blade is just a damage spell. So I'm going to do damage. There are different types. There's damage, debuff, heal, which is for health, restore, which is a mana heal, and then there's one more, which is a buff. And so you basically choose the main type of spell this is, and then you set it to that. So this one's mainly a damage spell. And then the initial damage type, it deals piercing damage, and then the damage multiplier is 1, since it's it deals 100% piercing damage. The stat to spend is it's gonna spend mana. The display stat is just mana, so that in game it'll show that it costs mana instead of current mana. And then the base cost for this one is 25. The base cost multiplier, because I will have some spells that cost a multiplier of your mana instead of a flat amount, but in this case it's just 0. And then the cooldown is 2 turns. The upgrade 1 description is plus 50% piercing damage dealt. The second upgrade is minus 10 mana cost. And then the target type, which is an array, it's basically entity types, which 0, well, you can read the description on here. 0 is for player, 1 is for ally, 2 is for enemy. So this is basically you're setting what can this spell target. And so I have to give it 2, since it only targets enemies. And the problem that I have with arrays is whenever you create a new array, it allows you to put in as many values as you want, but the problem is it doesn't tell you this. Like, all you see right here is it just says rest, which is basically like this. This is a rest. You give it as many values as you want. That's what the rest parameter means. But anyway, I'm gonna close that off real quick. But for an array, it doesn't tell you this, but if you give it just one value, so for this case I wanted to target enemies, so I would put in 2 for an enemy type. The first number for an array designates that array length, instead of actually like having the number 2 inside of that array in the first index. So if I just leave 1, 2, it doesn't actually have the number 2 inside of it. It just designates that this array has 2 indexes, which is stupid because arrays in Flash, they're like, I guess the word is dynamic, where it doesn't really have a specific length. If you put something in the array, it automatically increases its length. So I don't know why you would want to even set its length in the first place if when you remove and add stuff, it changes its length dynamically. I don't get it. Anyways, that's a little rant that I have. And so the other problem I have is if you give it one number, it sets its length, but if you give it two numbers, the first one then converts to what it should be, where it adds itself to the array. So if I do this one here, it's not like it sets a new array with a length of 2 and with a number 2 in the first index. This will then create a new array with a 2 in index 1 and a 2 in index 2, which is ridiculous, but right now that's the only way I can really think of getting the number 2 inside this array in like one piece of code here. I guess I could do a rest parameter, which just means it would be like ... target type, because this basically will do what I want it to, where I can then like just do 2, but then I'll have to change up how the active spell uses the array. Maybe. I forget, just because rest parameters are a little finicky sometimes, but anyway. I'll probably fix that later, but right now I'm just going to keep it the same. Anyways, so we do have to put that back, and then what I do is I have some pre-made functions inside of this active spell class. I have a cast spell and get cost. This doesn't really matter because this is all automatically used by the cast spell function, and then these upgrades ones are the ones that I was looking for. And then every single spell class has this update description where, for instance, the description for Sharp Blade is deals 100% piercing damage, but if you get the first upgrade, I want it to update to where it says it then deals 150% piercing damage, so you don't have to like, okay, it deals 100% and are there any upgrades that increase the damage? I don't want it to do that. I want it to just, it tells you how much damage it does, and so you don't have to look around to see if there's any upgrades that augment it. So anyways, I will have to override the get description, not get cooldown. Get description, which is a void function, I'm pretty sure. Let me check it real quick. Oh, it's update description. I'm dumb, not get. That's why I didn't see it. There it is. Yeah, and then anyway, this description equals, and so basically it's going to say deals plus, and then I'm going to have to make another variable called damage mult, which is a number, and it's going to be set equal to 1, since that's going to be the beginning multiplier. And then I guess here I could just do like, I'm going to keep it deals, and then we take this damage mult, and I am going to, since this number is just 1 and I want this to display in its percentage form, I'm going to do math round just so that there's no floating errors while I multiply it, times 100, and then plus the percent piercing damage. So what this is going to do is it's going to say deals, and then it's going to take the multiplier, which here is 1, multiply it by 100, which will make it equal to 100, and it's going to say deals 100% piercing damage. And if I change the damage mult by like 1.5, which when I upgrade it, it will have this as its new multiplier. When it updates, it's going to say deals 1.5 times 100, which is 150. It's going to say 150% piercing damage. So that's what that's going to do. And then here I'm going to have to set the description, so I'm just going to call the update description method. And then I can basically start with the upgrades, or the upgrades first. And because all like the mana cost and the cooldown and the damage dealing is all done here in the active spell class, where here it takes the random damage, which, like I said before, it takes a random number between your weapon's minimum and maximum damage, also your bonus damage stat. And then from there it spends the resource, which in this case would be mana, and then it sets the cooldown of the spell, and it does everything for me. So all I have to do is just call the cast spell method, and it does everything. So then here I'm going to have to override the upgrade spell 1. This is the first upgrade, which in this case is plus 50% piercing damage dealt. And so all I have to do for here is this damage mult plus equals 0.5. So it's going to increase the damage mult by 0.5, which will then increase it to 1.5. And then the upgrade spell 1 function automatically calls the update description. So as soon as it does this, it's then going to update the description. And it's going to tell you that it deals 150% piercing damage. So that's done. The upgrade spell 1 is already done. I don't need to do anything else with that. Then I have to override upgrade spell 2, which in this case, it just reduces the mana cost. So all I have to do here is this base cost subtract 10, because it reduces mana cost by 10. So now, whenever the cast spell function is called, it's going to take its the base cost right here, which at first is 25, but when I reduce it to 10, by 10, it's going to be equal to 15. And so from here, it's going to be 15 right here. And so that's all I have to do for there. And then this calls the update description as well, just in case if either upgrade has something that changes the description. But since this doesn't have anything that changes the description, it's going to call this, but it's not going to do anything because the damage mult's going to be the same. But anyways, from there, I'm now done with both the upgrades. And then I have to override, 2 R's, cast spell. This is where the main meat of the spell comes in. Actually, do I have to do anything with... Because, actually, hold on. I don't think I have to do anything here because all the code to cast the spell is within this right here. Let me try that real quick. And then, after I create a spell, I have to go into the active spell class and, like, initialize the variable. So I have to make a new spell. This one is the Assassin Sharp Blade. Gotta say the type of variable that it is, and then down here when I call the initialize function, I then initialize the spell. It is the Assassin equals new Sharp Blade. And so from here, this spell will then be added into the game, and then from there I can... Okay, it ran just fine, so I didn't mess up the code. And then from here, once it's initialized, it's now added to the game, and I can now call its functions and just work with it. So then I can do the Assassin, and then whenever you unlock the spell, such as like when you buy it for the first time, you call the unlock, and then you give it the owner, like who's the owner of the spell, and then from here, I'm just gonna give it to the player. And so from here, it's now the blade, or not the blade, the spell is now like linked to the player. So now when I call Assassin cast spell, all I have to do is give it a target. It already knows the source since it goes by the owner. So from here, I can have it target the ally 1. And then from here, what's going to happen is I will show you. Alright, it ran just fine. So from here, let's bring this back over. And this is where I have all the dumping ground for all my testing. So from here, this is where the spell was cast. So the target player, he did a mana cast, and it cost 25 mana. So his mana was reduced by 25. And then the ally 1 was targeted by the player of the spell, and it did piercing damage, and it dealt 19 damage, which is, you know, weapon damage right there. So now what I can do before I cast the spell is if I go into the spell, I can now upgrade it. And so from here, what's going to happen is the upgrade 1 increases damage by 50%. So what you're going to see is the damage is going to be 50% of, or 50% extra than my weapon damage. So my weapon damage deals 70 to 86, and from here it dealt 79 damage, which doesn't seem to have worked. Hold on, let me see. Because it, hold on. Oh, I did that wrong. I'm trying to think, what was its damage before? Oh, I know, 1.5, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, that doesn't seem to have worked actually, since in order for this to have dealt 79 damage, the initial damage was could have been 53 damage basically. And since my weapon deals a lot more than 50 damage minimum, something is screwy here. Let's go back to the drawing board, see what went wrong. Damage molt. Oh, you know why? Because I don't even need to have this variable. Because I don't need the damage molt. I just need the initial damage molt right here. I wasn't actually changing the multiplier that the cast spell function used. I was manipulating a variable that only the sharp blade class knew. Yeah, so all I had to do is I had to manipulate the actual damage multiplier, and now this should work. Oh my god, there's some shrieking going on. I don't know if you guys can hear that. There we go. That looks a lot better. There we go. Current mana pierced by 123. So now we can do 123 divided by 1.5, and its initial damage was 82%, or percent, 82 damage, which is between the damage that the player weapon deals. So this spell seems to be working just fine. And I have a little bit of extra time, so I will show what I was doing with Mercy. Mercy is a lot more complicated, since right here it says it deals 75% attack damage, and if the target is below 25% health, you gain a 35% chance to instantly kill them. So you can see how the spells get really specialized. Instead of just, it deals damage, it deals spell damage, it, poisons and stuff. Now this one, the spells are able to have some very uniqueness to them. Anyways, and then the upgrade is it deals 75% extra damage if the target is below 50% health. So instead of dealing 75% attack damage, it will then deal 75% more on top of that, which actually isn't like 150% total, because what it'll do is it'll 75 times 1.75. It'll actually deal about 131% damage. It's multiplicative instead of additive. Instead of dealing 75 plus 75 to 150, it'll deal 0.75 times 1.75, which is that right there. If that makes any sense, hopefully it does. And then the second upgrade increases the health threshold, which is just right here. So what it'll do is it'll then make it to where if the target is below 50% health, you gain a 35% chance to instantly kill them. And then in Mercy, I did already start it a bit. So for here, I do have a variable called the health threshold, which is the 25% chance. If they're below that, you get the chance to kill them. And then I already created the spell itself. It's a damage spell. It deals attack damage by a factor of 75%. It costs current mana, and it costs 30. And that's its cooldown is 4 turns. And then these are its specials right here. And then that's the target array, which is 2, because it targets enemies. Anyways. And it doesn't need to be... I don't need to override the first upgrade, since basically whenever you upgrade a spell, all it does... Hold on, I gotta see the super here. Yeah, here in the upgrade spell 1 and 2, it basically sets a boolean that you already bought the upgrade. The upgrade is equal to true, so all I have to do for this one is see if you bought the upgrade, and if you did, then from there run this right here. So I don't actually have to do anything with the upgrade spell 1 function, so I don't need to override it here. But with the upgrade spell 2, I did need to override it, because I need to change the health threshold by another 25%. And then from here, the description: deal 75% attack damage, and if the target is below, you take the health threshold up here, which at first is 25 or 0.25, multiply it by 100, which then makes it 25, and if the target is below 25% health, you gain a 35% chance to instantly kill them, so that whenever you upgrade it here, it then equals 0.5, which will then change this right here to 50%. So yes, anyways, whenever you cast the spell, since it's overriding, I can call the super, and calling the super basically calls the cast spell function of active spell. So then it'll run all this. But the thing is, the cast spell returns a value, and when it hits return, any code after doesn't run. When it hits return, it stops the function. So from here, I need to know the damage that the cast spell does, because I need to increase it by another 75% if the target's below 50% health if you have the first upgrade. So the thing is, I have to make it to where it doesn't return a value until the very end. So that's why right here I have the cast spell all the way up here, and I have it to where it makes the damage dealt variable equal to whatever this spell returns. I don't actually have this returning anything until down here because I need it to run this code, if that makes any sense. Hopefully it does. Anyways, so in the cast spell, if you bought the first upgrade, then it'll keep going. So if you haven't bought the first upgrade, then this if statement won't run. Anyways, so it checks to see if you got the first upgrade, and then it checks to see if the target's health is below 50% of their max health. Because then that'll be like, if their current health is below 50% of their max health, then they're below 50% health. And then from there, if that's true, and if you bought the first upgrade, then it's going to deal another 75% attack damage. So right here, damage dealt, it makes a new stat change event by 75% of the damage that this cast spell dealt. And so from here, it does that, and then plus 25% health threshold for this one. Now I need to add the instant kill. So basically, what the instant kill is going to do is, I need to check the target's health again, because if they're below 25% health, well, in this case, I need to use the health threshold. So I need to do like if target, oh geez, go back. Current health is less than the target's max health, oops, by a factor of this dot health threshold, so that whenever you cast the spell, it calls this threshold up here, so that when you change it right here, it'll use the new variable right down here. So yeah, if the target's current health is below the target's max health by a factor of the health threshold, then we do a random number, which is a unsigned integer, which basically means it's a positive integer. If I just do int, then it also includes negative numbers, but since I'm doing a number between 1 and 100, I don't need negative numbers, so I'm just going to do uint just to keep it nice and orderly. Do I already have math functions? I don't. So I need to import my math functions class that I created to use the random number function. I need unseeded because I don't want to use the seed. It's going to do 1 through 100. And then if, well actually I could just put it right here. If a random number between 1 and 100 is greater than, no, I'm just doing less than 35, or equal to actually, because I want to include 35. If it's 35%, then what we're going to do is we're going to kill the target, basically. We're going to do a new stat change event. It's a current health. And since I want to, I'm not going to make it like attack, because if I use the attack type, it's going to it's going to reduce the damage based on the target's armor, damage reduction. Since I want to ensure the kill, I want to make a unique type so that it doesn't get reduced. So I'm going to do kill, and then target entity is the target, the source is this, oops, is the owner of this spell by a change of the target's current health, but the negative, since it's going to damage them by a factor of their health to kill them. And then all that's already set, and so from here, if the target stat is below, or if the target's health is below a max health times the threshold, then it chooses a random number between 1 and 100, and if that's less than or equal to 35, it's going to kill the target. And then from there, that should be okay with Mercy. And from here, I do have to initialize the spell. So I go up here, our assassin Mercy, and from here, Mercy equals new Mercy. I'm gonna run the code real quick just to make sure I Did everything okay? Everything seems to be running just fine. So from here, I'm going to do Mercy unlock on the player. And then, yes, I'm going to cast the Mercy spell. It's not going to do a lot of damage since the ally is going to be at max health at this point. But what we'll be able to see is, yeah, right here, it only dealt 32 damage. Since what we can do to see 32 divided by 1, oh yeah, no. Times 1.25. Oh, I don't think I did that right. Anyways, the damage itself was reduced by both the ally armor and by a factor of 75% of the player's damage. And then it didn't really do anything because the point of that spell isn't to use it whenever the ally is at max health. You're supposed to use it when they're below 50% health or 25% health, depending on if you bought this upgrade or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh geez, active, oh give me the active spell, Mercy. I'm going to upgrade it right here. No. There it is. That's the one I wanted. Upgrade spell 1. And I'm going to upgrade spell 2. And then from here, I'm going to actually just set the ally 1's current health to like 200. Since I changed their constitution by 100, their max health is going to be 1,000. So 200 current health out of 1,000 max health is below 35%. So or is below 25%. So I'm gonna see if the instant kill goes through. So we can see if he died. It didn't go through just because you already see that he already attacked. So from here it dealt the 52 damage, but then since I bought the upgrade, it dealt an additional 75% of that damage. Since I bought the upgrade and since he was below 50% health, what I can do to show you what the instant kill would look like is if I set this to 100, then if a number between 1 and 100 is less than or equal to 100, that basically means it's always going to pop. So he's going to die. He is 100% chance to die. Yeah, and right here, the combat didn't even start because right here, current health kill, it dealt 113 damage, which was how much health that the ally had. And so you see the instant kill works. It's just right here. Making it pop is the difficult part since it's only a 35% chance. It actually did go through. I did get the 35% chance, which was more unlikely than it was likely, but it still wasn't super unlikely. But anyways, that was that spell, and that was basically a small look into how my spell creation works. I may make another video soon. Maybe I might record myself creating spells just to show you the process I go through. Creating a spell isn't really hard since I did a decent job at making the framework. And so recording myself making the spells, you know, I might as well do it since I'm gonna be making the spells anyway, and it also adds to the content that I'm able to create for you guys. Anyways, I am running this a little bit long, so I'm gonna cut the video now. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then please show your support by clicking the like button, commenting, subscribing, all that garbage. And anyways, I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.